we were doing a question that we hadn't finished, and we need to finish that question off, which had to do with, we'll get there, this perimeter of this cone. And I had asked you guys to give it a go and see what sort of answers you came up with. So does anyone want to let me know what answer they ended up getting for this question? I'll give you an opportunity to have a think and let me know if you want to try it. Otherwise, I will go through it and we can see what we should have gotten. Seem to be having a real technical difficulty here today.
Teacher Sam, is it okay if after this question I run the holiday classes polls?
Absolutely.
Maybe? Okay, thank you.
Guys, I don't know. Technology is not my friend. Pretty sure I need one battery in here. Haha, right. Okay, I don't see any hands, so we're going to go through this quickly, and then Yolanda is going to run a poll for us, and we'll explain what that is in a second. So remember I said to you that there were two parts to this that we needed to consider. We had this sort of half circle length that we needed to work out, as well as the fact that we had two triangles here where we needed the lengths of LM and MN. Now we spoke about the fact that those two triangles are exactly the same, and they're both right angled triangles, which means that we could use Pythagoras to go and work out this missing length, MN, and therefore LM. So if we start with that, we can say NM squared, and we know that this is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle, is equal to 15 squared plus 8 squared. Okay, and remember the reason we're doing all of this is because of Pythagoras, or the Pythagorean theorem. And so we sort of apply our theorem as such. When we go and add those two squares together, so 15 squared plus 8 squared, we get 289. Now remember that is still NM squared. We don't want the squared. What we want is just NM. So we have to go and square root both sides because that cancels out my square. And so when I square root 289, I get that NM is equal to 17 centimeters. Now, importantly, there are units to this answer. We were given centimeters, and so we have to have our values here. And so we now know that each of these lengths, MN and LM, are 17 centimeters. That's a good first step. The next thing I need to go and do is I need to go and work out that half circumference, the one in pink. Now we know that to work out the circumference of a circle, we have the formula 2 pi r. So if we work out the circumference, we would have 2 times pi times the radius, which we know is 8 centimeters. And that would give me 16 pi, which is 50,26, and there's a whole long decimal, 50,2654, blah, blah, blah. Whole long decimal that we have there. Now that is for a full circle. Remember, this is for a full circle. We only want half a circle. So what I need to do with this answer is divide it by 2, because that will now give me the hemisphere or the semicircle's length that I want. When I divide that by 2, I now get 25,1327, and again, there's a whole long decimal. And now that I've got all of this information, I can go and work out the total perimeter, because now I've got this half circle length, I've got the 17 and the 17, and so now all I need to do is add it together. So when adding this together to get my total perimeter, I'm being a bit lazy there, total, I will say 17 plus 17 plus the 25,13 and all those decimals, and I end up with a final total perimeter answer of 59,13, and remember, centimeters. So it was a tricky one. It was intended to be a tricky one. But what we need to do is remember, like I said in one of our other questions, is that sometimes we leave off information and expect you to first go find it before actually answering the perimeter or area question in the shape that we're working with. So I'll leave it up there if you want to take a screenshot. I see Nompumolelo's hand is up, and then we're going to go and run that poll for the holiday classes. Nompumolelo, do you have a question for us?
Afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, may you please show us our top 10?
Yeah, I will go back there in a second. I'm going to let everyone screenshot this and then I'll go back there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. What we're going to chat about today is just the basics of area and how to do basic calculations with area. So I don't know if anyone maybe wants to put up their hand, or you can just put it in the chat. What is area? Like when I say area, what do I mean? Amatle, tell us.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think area is the inside of a shape, not the inside of the shape. Yes.
Okay, good. So area is basically the space that a shape occupies or takes up, that a shape, it's easier for me to type than to try and write. So it's how much space is that shape taking up. Tandor, do you want to add anything to that?
Amahle mainly took what I wanted to say, but then it's also the calculation of when we calculate the length and the width.
Okay, good. So when we are working with area, we need 2 dimensions in order to go and calculate that area. And we're going to chat about that in a second. So we're going to fill that in when we look at our specific shapes. Abel, do you want to add anything?
Ma'am, I was going to say the same thing that Tando said, ma'am. So
Okay.
thank
Good.
you, ma'am.
Good. Alrighty, guys. So basically what we need to be mindful of is that area is now basically considering the space a 2D shape takes up. So to sort of illustrate this for us, if we consider a rectangle, that's a massive rectangle, just going to make that a tad smaller. We know that in terms of perimeter is the outside length of my rectangle. So what I'm doing in blue is perimeter. Whereas now when we want to consider area is now all of the space inside my shape. So it's basically how much space is this shape taking up? And this is what we're going to start having a look at now today. Now, in terms of area of 2D shapes, there are formulas that we can learn in order to work out the areas, which is what we're going to write down now in a second. So I would encourage you that if you don't know how to screenshot on your device, try and figure it out, or have a phone handy to take pictures of your screen or whatever, because these formulas are going to be formulas that you will need to apply all the way up until matric. And these are formulas that we won't necessarily give you, but we expect you to know. So they're very important to have. Okay, so our first shape that we've got here is a square. Now, importantly to remember is that a square's sides are all the same length. Now, we know this because of these little like tick marks on here. And so if I say that the side is represented by S, we can apply the same sort of logic as how we would work out the area of a rectangle, but we can simplify the area of a square to say that the area is equal to side times side, because they're the same value. And we then know that if we're multiplying 2 of the same variables, we're squaring it. So here, the area of a square is found by saying side squared, or side times side. Now, importantly, we only multiply it twice. So we're not going to multiply side times side times side times side for the 4 sides. That comes into something like perimeter, where we add the sides. Area is just side times side. So you can see that we are working with those 2 dimensions, like I think Tandor mentioned to us. Alrighty, so if we then go to a rectangle, and this is now where the mention of that length and that breadth or width came up. If we now want the area of a rectangle, don't know why I'm rewriting it, it says it right there. What we do is we take the length, which is basically the longer side of my triangle, times by, and you can either call it the breadth or the width, it really doesn't matter, but it is the shorter side of your rectangle. Now, I know I'm writing it with cursive letters. You don't have to do that. It's absolutely fine for you to just say length times breadth. I've always just done it like that, so that's just what I'm used to, but it's basically your length times your breadth. And just so that we all sort of understand where this is coming from, if we go back to sort of that basic rectangle, so here's my rectangle. If I take my length, which we can see here is 3 units, and I take my breadth, which is 2 units, and I multiply them together, I get a value of 6. We'll get to what the unit should be in a second. And if I now go and consider what that means in terms of area, remember I said it's the inside of the shape. If I shade the inside of the shape, what I see is that I've got 6 unit blocks that sort of take up or occupy the space of the shape. And so that 6 represents these 6 blocks that the area encompasses. And so that is why we only need to multiply 2 dimensions, because we take into account all the space along the length and all the space along the breadth, and it sort of encompasses that whole 2D area enclosed in the shape. So this is where our area formula is coming from and why we multiply with 2 dimensions with area. Right, so I'm going to hang 10 there in case you want to take a screenshot of those 2 formulas. And then we're going to move on to our next shapes that we need to know. And guys, the same logic would apply for the square. So if we look at our square, that makes sense. If I draw a square that's 2 by 2, it really doesn't matter what size the square is, but I'm just going to draw 2 by 2 so that it fits. We can then see obviously the sides are the same length. If I now go and work out the area and say 2 times 2, or we can say 2 squared, doesn't matter, we get an answer of 4. And if I go and look at how much space the square occupies, I can see that it occupies 4 unit blocks. And so what that means is that my area is 4 units squared. We'll get to the units in a second, but that is essentially why we work with this area formula. Alrighty, so that's our rectangles and squares. Those are the nice easy ones. Triangles and circles, a little bit more tricky. Now I've got a whole bunch of triangles here, mostly because these are all sort of the different types of triangles we could expose you to. And I just want to chat about a couple of things in terms of the variables that we use in the formula. So as Amatley's put on the chat there, the area of a triangle is equal to half times the base times the height. Now, importantly, this base and height are sides within the triangle. So this is the base side or the bottom side. And if we go and look at our triangles here, it really doesn't matter all too much which side is your base. But if we just sort of take it logically, my base are all of these bottom sides on my triangle. Now this bottom triangle is a little bit weird, and we'll get to that in a second, but those are your bases. The height is then the height of your triangle. So how tall is your triangle? Height of triangle. So for the, I'm going to say the first one, but it's not really the first one. For the right angle triangle, this is a little bit easier to see because this is very clearly how tall the triangle is. It goes from the bottom to its sort of maximum tip point. If I look at this sort of, I don't know, more regular looking triangle, the height is always from the top point to the base, and it is always perpendicular to the base. So will always be measured at a right angle to the base, and we saw that in the right angle triangle. For this weird looking triangle at the bottom there, the maximum point is at that vertex up there. But if we go and draw the height, it does fall outside of the triangle, but that doesn't matter because our base length is then only encompassing the side of the triangle. Now, this is a bit of an anomaly, this last one, or it's a bit of a special case. And so it's not something I want you to stress too much about. but it is something that can come up and it is something that we need to be aware of. And so just bear it in mind. Now, again, it doesn't matter that the height is falling outside of the shape. It's still how tall the shape is. The base length will not include this extra bit here. And so we're still doing an accurate calculation. Right, so for a triangle, half times the base times the height. Obviously, if you want to write this without the multiplication signs, so basically area is equal to half base times height, that's absolutely fine. Just remember you are multiplying. Okay, so again, I'll leave it here in case you want to take a screenshot. And then we'll have a look at our last shape, which is a circle. Okay, while I'm waiting for everyone to screenshot, does anyone maybe want to put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand? Does anyone know the area formula for a circle? Our QA?
Ma'am, isn't it pi radius square?
Good, well done. So guys, as our QA said, if we go to now our circle, the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. Excellent, our QA, well done. So that is our formula for the area of a circle. It is pi times r squared, or you can say r times r, it really doesn't matter. Guys, what is really, really important is that you do not get this confused with the circumference formula. Circumference is 2 pi r. So the way I like to remember it, and you'll see this now in a second, is that area, or the area formula rather, has the squared in it, whereas the circumference formula does not. Okay, so pi r squared is the area of a circle. Again, as Amatli has also put on the chat, if you want to sort of expand this a bit more, you could also say pi times r times r. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so again, if you want to take a screenshot, do that. There's one more little note that I want to make before we take a little break and do some examples after that. Right, so when we are determining area, what we need to remember is that our answer will have units squared. So it will be something like the area is in centimeters squared, or millimeters squared, or meters squared. It really depends on what the unit is, but it is always units squared. And this is quite helpful for us when remembering the formula for the area of a circle, because the formula with squared in it relates to the units squared that area is always in. So guys, very important to remember, when determining area, your answer will be units squared, because remember, we're timesing two units together. And so we end up with that unit squared. So make a little note of that, because that is very important. If your units aren't correct, then unfortunately your answer doesn't mean what it should mean. And so it is very important that we put our units into our answer correctly. Okay, and then, like I say, we've got a little brain break. We're going to do it the same as we've always been doing it, in terms of we're not going to sort of say anything or do anything. The first person to get the answer will then explain it to us. So please make sure you do put your answers on the chat. And here is, oops, we'll get there eventually. Okay, my screen's just having a bit of a moment. It's fine. There we go. Here is today's brain break. We've got the Christmas spirit going on. So have a look, take careful note of how many of each shape you are working with, take careful note of the operations. And first person to get an answer, pop it in the chat for us. so we can hear how you did it. Remember, guys, order of operations, very important. Remember to put your answers in the chat. We're going to wait for the correct answer that we see in the chat, and then we will call upon that lucky person. Liking what I'm seeing so far happening in the chat.
Let's go, my babes.
And Lawful, I mean, I'd like to think I'm good at division, but sometimes my maths is dodgy. But let's hope. Let's hope. Have I
Let's
thrown
see
a
who's
hard
the
one at you
winner.
guys?
Whoa, Ansife got it. Well done, Sife.
Lovely. Sihle, do you want to raise your hand so you can explain to us how you got it? Awesome. Okay, tell us, Sihle.
Ma'am, the present was 10. 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30.
Good.
And 2 presents is 20.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chart is 14.
Good.
And the Christmas tree is 12.
Good. Well done.
And then I said 12 plus 10 times 7, which is 82.
Perfect. And why is it 7 over here for the calendar chart thing?
Because half of 14 is 7.
Good. There's only one chart here, so it's 7. Do I start with the multiplication or the addition, Sihle?
The multiplication.
Good.
Bonus.
Good. So guys, 7 times 10 is 70, which means that 12 plus 70 is exactly as Sihle said, 82. Excellent. Well done.
Well done.
Very nice, guys. So that was the answer for today's brain break. Hopefully we're getting there. I know that these ones here, especially at like step 2, are quite tricky when you're having to work out the thing that you're timesing and adding together. And it does take a bit of trial and error, but you just have to keep working with your numbers and keep going at it to figure it out. All right, very nice. Lafika, do you have a question before we move on?
Ma'am, my question was for the triangle that we did earlier.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to scroll up.
That one, miss. No, actually, scroll down again. No, a bit more up. The previous one.
I'm
Yes, miss, that
confused.
one.
This one. Oh, wait, hang on. There we go.
Yes, miss, that one. I wanted to ask, miss, are you supposed to leave it like that, or should you give it an answer?
Okay, so this is just the formula. When I actually start giving you values, we will give it an answer, yes.
No, it's for the rectangle, miss, not the triangle.
Okay, but for all of these are all just formulas. We're now going to look at examples here with numbers, so we will actually get an answer.
Oh, okay. Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, sure. Guys, there was just a question to go back to the circle, so there you go, just in case you need it. And then we're going to have a look at some examples here using our formulas that we've written down to get actual answers for our areas. Okay, I hope we all got what we needed there. Let's have a look at some examples. So if we have a look at question A, just quickly put it in the chat. What sort of shape have I given you in question A? You can just type it in the chat for me. What is it? What sort of quadrilateral? Nice, Sadine, well done. So guys, this is a square. I know that it's a square because I've told you that all four sides are equal in length. And so if I've got all four sides in equal in length and all of these interior angles are 90 degrees, then I'm working with a square. Now, if I know that I'm working with a square, in order to then determine the area of this shape, I've got my formula. Now, you can either use length times breadth, it really doesn't matter, or you know that area here is side times side. And because I know the side length is 4 centimeters, all I need to do is say 4 times 4. And so when I multiply my two sides together, I get 16. Now, very importantly, I gave you units to this measurement. It was in centimeters. And remember, I said to you that when working out area, it is always the unit squared. So exactly as Tando said on the chat there, this is 16 centimeters squared. Area will always have a squared to the units, and it's very, very important that we put it in. Okay, so not too tricky. We use our formula, we substitute in, and we get our area of our square. Okay, so I'll leave that there. I'm going to ask you guys to try question B by yourselves. You now have a rectangle. Remember that the area of a rectangle is equal to your length times your breadth or your width, doesn't matter. So I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I want you to tell me what the area of this rectangle is. You can put your hand up if you want, or you can put it in the chat, completely up to you. And once you have an answer, do let us know. Remember the units for your answer. And guys, remember, you can take a screenshot of these. So if you don't get a chance to draw them out nicely for yourself, do remember to take a screenshot so that you can go back and see what the shape was. Remember, this long side here is your length. The shorter side here is your breadth. Okay, Awakiwe, do you want to tell us? How do we do this?
Ma'am, you follow the what's it called? The formula that says length times breadth. So the length is 4,5 and the breadth is 2.
Good. So what is 4,5 times 2?
It's 9. It's 9
Good.
meters squared.
Excellent. Well done. Guys, remember, units squared, this length or these dimensions were in meters. So it means that my area needs to be 9 meters squared. So guys, importantly, as our QA said, all we do is we follow the formula. So it says length times breadth. My length is 4.5. My breadth is 2. And so we just times them together. That's all we need to do. Nothing more than that. Okay, so just bear that in mind when doing it. Amakle, do you have a question for us?
Ma'am, my question is in a test or an exam, if we're given this, do we have to show the formula?
No, you don't have to. You can if
Okay.
you want to, but it's not necessary, no.
So we won't get like more marks if we do.
No. No, because we expect you to know the formula. I mean, if you want to write it down just to make sure for yourself, but no.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. And then guys, just in response to the question on the chat, we don't square the numbers. It is only the units squared. So just to sort of make that quite clear, whoops, over here, it is only the units that we square. We don't square the numbers. Okay, that's very important. And the numbers we just plug into the formula and we use it like that. All right, so there you go. Take your screenshots of those two if you would like. And then we're going to have a look at another shape. Alrighty, so here in question C, we now have a triangle. Now, first things first is, again, we're looking for area. So we need to remember what the formula is for the area of a triangle. It is half times the base times the height. And guys, when working with a triangle, because that made sense. When working with a triangle, what we need to do is we first need to identify whether or not we know the base length and the height. So remember, your base is sort of the bottom length of your triangle. And in this case, we do know that. We've been told that the base AB is 8 centimeters. And then in terms of the height is then how tall the triangle is from its sort of maximum point down to the base at a right angle. And we do know that. We've been given the perpendicular height here of 7 centimeters. So in terms of being able to work out the area, I have all of the information I need. So now I will say half times the base, which is 8, times the height, which is 7, and we get an answer of 28. And remember, it is units squared, so centimeters squared. And so just by substituting into my formula, I'm getting the area of my shape. Now, this is why I quite like area. As long as we know our formulas, it's actually a very easy calculation. And this is going to help us as we sort of start to deal with more complex shape, and when we start working with like 3D shapes, knowing these basic formulas is so, so important. And so, again, it's not that you need to be writing down these formulas, but knowing these formulas and how to apply them is very important. Okay, so I'll leave that up for a second or two if you want to take a screenshot.
Screenshot, my babes. Y'all are doing really, really good, my people. Let's push, let's learn so you can understand this session. You're going to nail it on your exam.
And guys, measurement will come up all the way up until matric. And it isn't a section that we often spend a lot of time on, but it is a section where you can get nice, easy marks. So if you can get this stuff like down pat, then it's easy marks that you can hopefully get. Right, just the question has been raised to me, and just that you are aware of it. We will deal with questions like this as we start to get more complex. But just bear in mind that if for whatever reason you weren't given this height. So let's say I didn't give you that 7 centimeters. What you need to remember is that you do have a right angle triangle. And so as long as I've given you 2 of your 3 lengths, you can go and use Pythagoras to work out your height. Like I said, don't stress too much about that at this point. We are going to do examples like that. But if you don't have the height, then you use Pythagoras. But we will do examples like that, so don't worry. Okay, so guys, another nice sort of basic one to start us off. We've got a circle here. The area of our circle is equal to pi times r squared, or you can say pi times r times r. So I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. I would like the area of the circle, and I would like you to please round your answer off to 2 decimal places. If you want to raise your hand to give us an answer, you are more than welcome to. If you want to put it in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But I would like it in 2, or round it off to 2 decimal places, please.
Remember to put units, my babes. Remember, an answer alone, even in your exam, your teacher might mark it wrong. Put your unit also, depending on the teacher, but it's always a good practice to put units. Let's go, my babes.
Yeah, guys, do put your units. Personally, I would take a mark off if you didn't put your units there. It's very important because without those units, the answer doesn't mean what it needs to mean. Alrighty. Awakiwe, do you want to tell us?
Yes, ma'am. The answer is 78,53 centimeters squared.
Okay, so good, guys. Like I said, I asked for 2 decimal places. So this is 78,5398 blah, blah, blah decimals. If I want to round off to 2 decimal places, remember I look at the 3rd decimal to see what effect it's going to have on the 2nd. Because it's greater than 4, it's going to round it up. So this is 7,54, and we need to remember our units, centimeters squared. To show you what your calculation should look like, it's pi times r, which is 5 squared. And so when you type that into your calculator, you get your answer. Now, importantly, some of you might be using pi as 3,14 or 3,142. That's where your rounding off might be a little bit different. It's absolutely fine. You must use pi according to what your teacher has told you to use. So if you've been told to use it as a certain value, then that's what you do. Okay, but essentially, once you have your formula, you substitute it in and you get your area of your shape. Okay, so if you want to take a screenshot, please do. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to try question A by yourselves. And then we're going to, if we've got time, we'll have a look at question B because it goes back to the conversation we were having around what happens if we don't have the height of a triangle. But I want you to try question A first for me. So this is a rectangle. Think about what the formula for area of a rectangle is. And once you have an answer, you can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Tell me what the area of this rectangle is. Remember your units. Like I say, this is a rectangle, so think about what your formula for a rectangle is. Very nice, guys. Lungile, do you want to tell us? Oh.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, I think it's 9.25 times 4 equals to 37 centimeters square.
Perfect. Well done. So, guys, your length is 9.25. Your breadth or your width is 4. Times them together, you get 37. And importantly, as Longile said, centimeters squared. It is area, it is units squared. Excellent. Well done. I am just waiting in case anyone wants to take a screenshot. I'm not just sitting in silence. Sorry. Alrighty, guys. So, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I want you guys to try C and D for me. We're going to deal with the triangle one on Monday because it is going to take a little bit of time. These ones a little bit easier. So C and D, you've got a circle. Please remember that if I give you the whole length, what I'm giving you is the diameter. Now, importantly, if you need the radius, which you do in order to find area, the radius is always equal to half of your diameter. That's the first thing. Second thing, in question D, I have only given you half a circle. So think about what that means when working out the area of the shape. Okay, so once you have 2 answers for C and D, you can put them in the chat. I'm going to give you a minute or so, and then we'll quickly do these before you get the link to your quiz for the week. Remember those units, very, very important. Units squared.
You got this, my babe. You got it. Let's do this.
Okay, guys, just because I don't want you to be too pressed for time and then we have to rush off. If we look at question C, remember that the area of a circle is equal to pi times r squared. Now, importantly, I gave you the diameter, which means that you first need to work out the radius. And the radius is equal to half of your diameter, so it would be 24 divided by 2. And so your radius here is 12 millimeters. And so now when you go and substitute into your formula, you will have pi times 12 squared. Again, when you put that in on your calculator, you're going to get your answer. And that was an answer of 452,39. Again, importantly, it is millimeters squared. It is an area. So very, very important. It is pi r squared. And you first needed to work out your radius because I didn't give that to you. Just quickly, in terms of Ayola's comment on the chat, it is, if you use the pi symbol on your calculator, you will get 144 pi. That is fine, but we do generally round off to 2 decimal places when we have an answer in pi, but it is the same thing. Alrighty, then for question D, we've only got half the circle here, so we need to be careful. Again, I've given you the diameter, so we first want to work out the radius. The radius would be 6,4 divided by 2, which gives me 3,2 centimeters in terms of my radius. And so now when I want to go work out my area, I have all of the information that I need. So I can say pi times r squared, which will then be pi times 3,2 squared. And that would be equal to 32,169, and there's a whole long decimal to it. Now, importantly, this was the area for the full circle. I want half a circle. So I now need to take that answer and divide it by 2. And that gives me 16,08, and again, centimeters squared. Right, so quickly take your screenshots of that. Hopefully that makes sense. We are going to do more area on Monday and Wednesday, actually. So we've done some basics now. We are going to do more of it, so don't stress.